ready, Kira? Let's see if it's working. Okay, perfect. So today we're going to have a website making crash course. The agenda for today is that we're going to do some presentations. Then we're going to have some pizza. And then I'm going to interrupt your pizza with your very own test site, which we're going to make your first draft of a website on together. And then you can bring that home, and then you can get in contact with us to get it published more officially with your own blah blah blah.com and whatever later. And it's going to be a crash course with an emphasis on crash, because we're going to go into basically everything you need to know exists, but we're not going to go too in depth. And this is our Facebook group, so those of you that already I have earned the trust of can join this Facebook group, and there will be a post with a link to these slides if you want them on your computer or whatever already. And if you are able to accept them when they ask to join this group, I will be really happy. But so those that want can do that. I'm going to wait to tell the people that want to have done it. Jeg hadde Moto G100. Motorola er ganske bra. Ikke din? Hvilken har du? Du vet ikke? Nei, ok. Da tror jeg ikke den er bra.
Can I search up the group? Because I don't have this down.
Yeah, it's called Folkegjort Members and Friends.
Okay.
You can stay for as long as you like and leave if you want, because I'm going to be using this group to invite people to future events and stuff, so stay for as long as you want and be a part of the community as much as you want, and use us for your own events, or like link up with people if you want, and then if you don't want, don't feel forced to stay, and leave and treat it like what it is. And while Kira is accepting you guys, I'm going to move on. So mainly what did I want to say here? Yes. So what we do is we're an association that mainly handles study platform where we use the skills that you're learning today to make people able to publish stuff about their subjects. I'm going to get back into what we do, but first I'm going to give you what you're here for. So some motivation. These are all members' sites, and this one is the standard WordPress site. So WordPress was made for blogging. So of course the default state when you get WordPress is a blog. And then this is a boat servicing company that I made a website for, where I did most of the stuff. And then this is the company for a student association here at the Faculty of Educational Sciences, I think it's called, where they made how they wanted their website to look in an imaging software like Spotify, no, like Photoshop. And then I made it into a website for them. And then this is a store for my granddad's wood making. And then this is my website, which is just very simple, where I'm able to post stuff if I want, and then people are able to find my links if they do search me up. And all of these functions, like informing about what you do, writing a blog, selling something, they can coexist on your website, but you can also start off with more basic website and then add on to it as you go. So how does website making work? I'm not going to go into a lot of the jargon you'll see when you Google this, and at the end you'll understand how website making with WordPress fits into the whole picture. And you don't need to remember all of this, but it's really good to, I've made some diagrams, and it's really good to just get the whole picture before we dive into actually making our websites. So when I talk about website making, I talk about both just designing your website and developing it. And in the career force, like, you do have website designers and website developers, but as just a person making a website, you don't need to make that big of a distinction between those two things. And they're more similar than they are different, but the only thing to remember about website design and website development is that they're two different tasks and you can't do multitasking. So just keep in mind that you can both design and develop your website, and try to split those two up so that you don't get stuck in whatever you're trying to do. And you need to understand how the internet works and how your website consists of some sort of files to understand like how website making in general works. And what we're going to be looking at later is how to make those files on WordPress, where we have like set up everything about how the internet works for you. So the internet is basically just a network of networks. And when you do something on the internet, you talk to another computer through something called TCP/IP, where the TCP is the packaging and the IP is the address of where you're sending whatever you're doing. So when you hear IP address, it's the address of the computer you're talking to on the other side. And then your files that your website mainly consists of are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files. And these are languages for writing documents. And HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. And these languages, they explain themselves pretty well. So it's called a markup language. And what it does is that it denotes what elements should be where and how, using what's called HTML tags. So when you hear the word HTML tag, it's part of the hypertext markup language, and it tells what should be where, like roughly on your website. And then you use something called CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets, to denote how your elements should look and be presented. So your HTML tags may mark up your website in one way, and then your CSS might move them around a little bit, or like justify them in relationship to each other, tell them what color they should be, and so on. And out of these three files, JavaScript is the actual programming language. So it's a scripting language, and it allows you to create dynamic content. So when you use HTML and CSS, you can't, there's only so much you can do. So if you want to actually write some programs, you do it in JavaScript, and then you have it show on your website through an HTML tag or something. Or you use JavaScript to maybe create some HTML. So JavaScript is the programming language. And this is for markup and for styling. So when you have a website on the internet, you have these three file types, and you use the HTTP protocol, which is why you might see HTTP in URLs, to put those files into the packaging that is TCP, and send it with the IP as the address of a computer to a computer that actually has those files. Like when you request a website, you send a request to a computer that has those files. It packages them and it sends them to you, and then you unpackage them. And the computer that sends the file is called the host, and you who is accessing the website is called the client. And I will talk more about this later. So, later is now. So, the internet, files over the internet. But how can you make your client reach your host? Like, how can you make this connection happen? Then you use something called the domain name system. And when you work with websites, you're going to see the word DNS. And what DNS stands for is domain name system, and it turns a domain name into an IP. And a domain name is the part of your URL, which is your web address. That's like the main part. So you put maybe HTTPS in a URL, and then it will say maybe like facebook.com. And then facebook.com is called a domain name. And then maybe it will have like / and it will maybe say Folkeliggjort, which is our association. And it will tell your web browser to go to Folkeliggjort on Facebook. And then facebook.com is the domain name. And what happens to make facebook.com turn into the address of the computer that facebook.com is on is that it goes through the domain name system, and then facebook.com becomes the IP address through this domain name system. And then your your request will be sent to the right computer, and the website will be sent back to your computer. And what you control on this domain name system is called the authoritative name server. So the domain name system is basically a network of computers whose sole job is to decipher that domain name, and you control one server that all the other servers listen to. Which is why when you first, let's say you get a website on your own, it will take a little bit of time before it actually shows up on the internet, because you have to wait for this change to the authoritative name server to be reflected in the whole system, and then your computer can use this system to find the right computer. So usually it can take from 2 hours to 24 hours. Okay. So to do website making, then, okay, you need a host, and you need some way to have your domain name be a thing. So you can have your site be called yourname.com, for example. And the way you get hosting is through a hosting provider. And the way you get a domain name is through a domain registrar. And one company can seemingly represent both, but you don't need to use one company to get both. So usually if you try to get some hosting, like say you Google how to get the website, lots of companies are going to offer you a website. They might offer you some hosting, and then you can also tell them what domain you want, and they will handle domain registration as well. But you don't need to use them. Usually there are several companies that are just domain registrars, but maybe they'll be like, oh, now that you bought a domain, you want some hosting as well. So know that you don't have to go through one company, and we use a company called Domain Shop, which is called Domain Shop in Norwegian, and we use for domain registration, and then we use Hostinger as the hosting provider. And then what happens when you register a domain is that domain registrar, it says, hello, company.controls.com. I want to register this domain. And then they put you in the registry, and then the registry will say what name server is authoritative. So that's what's happening when you talk to a website making company behind the scenes. Yeah, and where does WordPress fit in all of this? WordPress is just a program that's on your host computer. Now, if you're familiar with WordPress, you might have seen WordPress.com. Well, WordPress is an organization, and they make an open source program which everyone can use for free. But they also have a company on WordPress.com that you can pay to have all of this managed for you if you don't want to get your own host and to get your own everything else here. And you can pay them to do it for you, but in essence, it's free, which is great. So this is what we're going to be looking at to create those files that your website consists of. That goes from here to here using this, in essence. Thank you. Any questions before we get into website making with WordPress?
I have feedback.
Sure.
Because I don't have these basics to understand what these words means. Like, it's not certain for me what a client, for example, is, or like hosts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a bit confusing, but I don't know how necessary it is to understand them before making websites.
Yeah. So this is just in general useful if you're like doing research on your own. And what the client is, it's your computer. So you say that your computer acts as a client when it's accessing the website, and the computer you rent through a hosting provider acts as the host. But your computer, it's just a role that your computer has. So your computer can also be a host if you're like playing an online game. You make a server for your friends, then your computer can be a host for your friends. So it's the role that your computer has when it's asking for a website. And it can be a host as well if it's like hosting. Yeah, you can host a website on your computer if you do the right things. So it's the role your computer has. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. You have to be a puzzle bit.
Yeah.
But I don't see like the.
Yeah.
But it's good enough.
These are some puzzle pieces to use when you're doing research, and what we're going to go into now is how to make a website with WordPress. And in the practical part later, we'll have done this for you. Let's get into it. Was there any more questions? Kira, do you want to ask? Do you want to act as a host? You want to act it out?
Act the host?
So what I imagine is I imagine someone hosting a dinner party, and I'm like, could you please pass me this thing? And they will be like, yes, sure, I can pass you that. Then they're acting as a host, and I'm acting as a client. Like, imagine going to a bank. You're acting as a client of the bank, being like, can I please withdraw some of my money? And your bank says, yes, of course, I'll do that for you. Then the bank is acting as a host. So what's new here is imagining computers being able to have those roles for you. Yeah, but this is just an overview. Now WordPress, it's a web publishing tool, and it's open source and free to use. So it's a web publishing tool means it helps you publish your sites online, which is really cool, and it's really empowering, and it's become really easy to do, which is why I'm so excited about it. And I hope you'll share some of that interest with me after this course. But it being open source and free to use, it means that lots of companies contribute to it because maybe they use it as part of their business model and they contribute to it to make it better. But that means that we can also use it and use those new features. So it gets updated all of the time. And it wasn't until like in January of last year that you can do some of the stuff we're going to do later, where it took the experience from this, which was the way you would edit like the main part of your website, like like a document has a footer. This is the footer of your website. A document has a header. This is called the header of your website. And this was the way you would customize your whole site before January of last year. But now you can go and manage all of the different top-level parts of your site, your header and your footer, with templates and stuff, and you can drag and drop. And we went from being able to customize just last year to being able to drag and drop the big main parts of your website. And this just came out of beta March this year with a sleek look and some rounded corners. And the next phase in WordPress development is being able to have multiple people working on web pages together. So it's becoming a really powerful tool, which is why I love it. Enough about why I love WordPress. So in its essence, it's a content management system because your website consists of a lot of content. So it needs to help you manage it well. The way you would manage your files manually if you made it with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript on your own. And you might have comments on your website, users, media. You might have some like main content, and you might have something that has to do with looks, and you might have some like keywords or categories on your blog. Okay, take this. And I'm going to explain this relationship right here. Because this is what's important for you to know if you want to actually like evaluate WordPress as a tool and use it for bigger applications. And this is what you'll come back to. It's dominoes. Take it. And don't trip. And this is what you'll come back to after you've done what we're doing today to realize what you were doing. And so when I talk about posts, I mean pages, because WordPress was for blogging. So a post is what you would think of as your page, like a document page, a page on your website. And posts are of a post type. And that's important because then you can have posts and pages with different templates. And templates decide how your post types should look. And then post types and templates contain something called blocks, which is a smaller abstraction of what's on your site. And then your post types, they can have taxonomies and attributes. For example, a keyword and a category is a taxonomy. And hierarchy is an attribute. And pages have hierarchy, but not categories and keywords. And then posts have keywords and categories, but not hierarchy. Which is... Okay, I didn't want to show that yet. So just understand that there's a difference and that there is a relationship, and then you can come back to this later. But it being post types and templates being their own separate things means that you have two states of editing, which you'll see when you do it for yourself later. You will edit your posts and your pages with your edit post and edit page buttons. And then you can edit your templates with your edit site or your site editor. And this means that you can edit a template that will decide how all of your posts look, say your posts on your blog, and then you can have one template deciding how all your pages, like your about pages, look. And then, of course, those are two different things, so they have two different editing states. And when you edit those guys, you can put in some blocks, which are your paragraphs and stuff, but you can also put in patterns, which are just groups of blocks, which makes it really easy for you to do editing these days. But what happens is that when you're working with blocks, like, it's not here, but for example, there's a block, it's called a group, and there's a block for a row, and you might have a group within a group with some blocks with a group. So what you get is you get blocks within blocks within blocks when you try to do website making this way, and it gets confusing. So that's why, just remember, you go straight to the list view when you get confused, and just know that it's just part of the experience to have blocks within blocks within blocks. And it's still easier than code. And what a theme does is that it modifies your templates. And it can modify some global styles and settings, and it may also add some functionality. But when you're talking about adding functionality, you're usually talking about a plugin. That's what they are mainly for. So you'll find your themes later when we do it together under appearance, and then you'll find plugins. And then these are two different things. And what we've done on our website is that we've added, so this is our study platform. And we've added a whole different template and a page to be able, and a taxonomy to be able to have a whole study platform on our website without making a new website, because otherwise these guys as templates, like, we want them to look different. And also we don't want these guys having, let's say, a subject code as a taxonomy to overflow all of our keywords. So also when you go back and want to do something more advanced for your website, knowing this relationship allows you to expand on WordPress. And this is more advanced. And then why plugins is important, let's say you want to implement a new feature, then you go looking for a plugin. Or if you're a company, you hire someone to make a plugin for you if it doesn't already exist yet. And this is a Google Drive embedding plugin. So this is a Google Drive folder at the bottom of our subject pages. And we did that just by using a plugin. We didn't do code, we got a plugin. And this plugin is really good. So to find good themes and plugins, you're going to be looking for block themes. This wasn't a thing a year ago, so you'll see in the popular tab, lots of the popular plugins won't be block themes. We'll take a look at this later, but we won't be changing themes because I want everyone to have the same theme. And to find good plugins, you'll find yourself between this battle of, do I want to pay for a plugin and spend less time, or do I want to use a free plugin and maybe have more troubles? And there's not a good answer on how to find good plugins. You just have to find the balance there. But I'm going to tell you about some of the plugins we use. So we use something called Fathom Analytics, which is more privacy-friendly than Google Analytics for showing statistics on your website. And then we use something called Smash Balloon, where you can embed your social media on your site pretty easily and also handle data privacy a little bit better than just embedding it yourself. And then we use this migration plugin, which is really cool for exporting and importing, let's say, your sites that you're making today. When you want it published, we're going to export it and import it. And we use this plugin to embed our drives. And we use this plugin called Rank Math to do WordPress search engine optimization, which is making sure your website actually shows up on Google. And the good thing about being part of an association is that, let's say you want to use these, you won't have to pay all of this upfront yourself if you're not going to take full advantage of the plugin. So we are already paying for these plugins, and it doesn't cost us anymore to include you in them as volunteer members. So as a volunteer member, you get access to these for free. Are there any questions about something that was like really confusing when it came to website making with WordPress? Yeah, so a plugin adds functionality, and that's what you need to know about it. You want more functionality, you go install a plugin. Yeah.
Is it a way to elevate your content, maybe organize it?
Yeah. Say you want to do something on your website, you're not able to, like you want to add, like you want to add Facebook. Then we have installed Smashballoon as a plugin, and it gives us a block called Facebook feed, and then we can put it on our website.
Our Facebook or like, or in how we can plug in Facebook?
You can do it with your own, but with on Instagram and Facebook, you can also embed like public tags. Like you can embed a hashtag if you want. But you still need to connect your own Facebook account because it talks with your Facebook account and tells your Facebook account to go look at those tags.
And can we also plug in some videos or something?
Yes, so plugging in YouTube is really cool, and with this plugin, you can like embed a whole YouTube channel, for example. We've done it on the website for this crash course. You'll see the live stream that we're doing right now is embedded on the top of that, and then our slides are embedded under that when you go look at it later. Yes?
Did you know I want to ask a question?
Because you went like.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that. But I was wondering if I can show what's on what movies going on cinema today.
Probably.
Probably not. What is
The question is just how you would do it. I don't know of like a plug and play solution. Like I don't know of a plugin that does that immediately, but there are probably ways to do it.
Is it gonna cost more money than?
Depends if there is a free plugin for it. I haven't looked at that specifically, but probably you're gonna want to get the stuff from a Norwegian cinema, and then there might not be a plugin that allows you to do that easily. But then you will have to be like, okay, how do I want to do this? Do I want to use some sort of embedding to like embed what their website looks like on my website? Or do I want to use some like advanced querying and query their website, or do they have something that allows me to do this? So I don't think that would be really easy, but it would be possible and maybe not too difficult, but you will have to figure it out.
Okay, it's possible.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, but that's the paid versus free versus do I have to pay someone to make this plugin, or do I have to figure it out on my own? That's the question that you are meeting there.
Do I need to be a really pro IT programmer to figure it out?
You have to be really good at Googling. Yeah.
Can I use ChatGPT?
Yes, ChatGPT is really good at code. So if you need a WordPress plugin, you can actually ask ChatGPT to be like, make me a WordPress plugin for this and have it help you. So it's become really easy these days to like extend your stuff. So you don't need to be a coding pro, and you can get a lot of help online. So it just that's why I really believe that knowing how all of this stuff works is it's basically all that you need to know, because you don't need to be a pro at this to get someone to do it for you or look online for a solution.
I have one question about WordPress. That when we finish one website.
Yeah.
So how we just share the link, or then it's live or something? How does it work? Or we can make multiple websites also.
Yeah. So when you have a website on a computer with a domain name, it's live. You find it by typing in the URL, the web address. So it's live. But you want to make sure that Google knows that you exist so that people find you when they're Googling. And the sites you are getting today, they are live. You can share that link with anyone. But Google doesn't know that it exists, so no one is going to Google and find your stuff. And it's not your own domain, so it doesn't look professional. But yeah, but you can make a website locally and then upload it online later. using some sort of tool. Like there are tools for that, and we use that when we make websites for people, because then it's just quicker to just set it up on our own laptop. But you just share the link, and you can make as many websites as you want. Okay. Now you're entering the world of you're entering the World Wide Web, and you need to just know that there is something called GDPR and data privacy. And to talk to you a little bit about that, we have our sponsor, Erik Horn, which is a GDPR consultant. Woo!
Now we've just learned a lot about web pages. GDPR, General Data Protection legislation, to sort of manage or secure our privacy when we're online. Anyone here know of it? A little bit, yes, a little bit.
It's an amazing audiobook. It's an amazing audiobook.
Yeah, you can get 5 minutes and then fall asleep, right? Excellent. Well, as introduced, I work as a consultant in Gap Solutions, and we have sort of a software solution to help companies do this. I'm not going to sell that to you, but I'm going to ask the reason you're having these web pages or thinking about making these web pages. Is it just for fun and for learning, or is it to start a business or run an organization? All of that? To run an organization?
Yes.
Anyone else? Yeah? What about the starting your own business? Yes? No? A mix. Good.
Perfect.
GDPR, I mean, seen from one perspective, it relates to all organizations. If it's a business or an ideal organization or whatever, you have to apply by the law. So that's why that is important. And then as individuals, we all can benefit from knowing a little bit about it, because then we know a little bit about what to expect, or some of the things that we should watch out for. Now, let's see if we can dive into this. The first slide here, I borrowed from the Norwegian Data Protection Agency, and I have translated it a bit into English. Basically, it says that the personal data have some principles that all organizations, companies, organizations should follow. And the first principle is they have to have a full overview of all the privacy or personal data that is processing. Name, address, telephone number, all sorts of data that can directly or indirectly identify an individual. And you have to have that overview before you start using it. So take a very simple example. How many of you have a job outside your studies? Most of you, right. So if your employer is paying you for that, as that's why you have the job, I guess, they have to have an overview of what sort of personal data they're processing before they pay you salary. So in other words, they have to know your name, probably some sort of social security number, some sort of bank account, to be able to send the money to the bank, to report the payroll to the tax authorities. So that's an example of that. Now, if you start your own web pages, then think about what sort of data is it that you are going to collect. Is it a name? Is it an address? Is it a credit card number? Is it a country of living, or whatever? And you're responsible for documenting this. And documenting is like, well, I have it in my head, on a piece of paper or on a computer file somewhere. So that's sort of what you need to have in the back of your mind. And as individuals, it's nice to know, because you can ask for insight. Any company you can ask, and what do we have on me? Why? Now, when you make web pages, you're responsible for the data you share with others. Now, imagine that you make this little web shop, or you have this organization, and you collect some data, the name of the members, or the credit card details of whoever purchases in your web shop, and you think, well, I'm not sharing that with others, but maybe you do, maybe you don't. That's one of those key questions, because as Tobias said on the earlier slides here, you can have some plugins. So you can put all sorts of functionality into your web page, but you are responsible for knowing what it does. So if you take a plugin and say, oh, well, I'm going to share, or I'm going to embed Facebook or YouTube or whatever they are on my homepage, yeah, sure. Just make sure that you know what sort of data they are sharing or borrowing or taking from your customers or your visitors and put onwards. Because very often, you know, and you've probably seen that yourself, and you've been in a place and you looked at something, and then the next few weeks and months, things are following you. And that's because the interest that you show is captured on the web page, in the cookies or on, you know, elsewhere, and it's shared and auctioned, and it could look like this. And you are responsible for that, because if you collected data that, you know, from me, and you said that you were going to use it only for your business, and then all sorts of other businesses, you know, come visiting me and want to push my products on me, it's probably, you know, your responsibility for that not to happen. So if you make web pages, I put on some links here. Test your web page, or if you have a friend who's made a web page, test their web page and see, you know, who they share the data with. This is, you know, a LinkedIn friend of mine that is, you know, giving me the insight here. She's a very good person to follow on that. And this is an example of, if you were to use one of these links and look at VG, the major Norwegian newspaper, well, it sends to web pages or URLs in these countries, and in turn in these countries, in turn here. And there you can see it goes pretty much lots of places. So that's obviously not only in Norway and not only within the EU. It's, you know, going across to other countries as well. And there's questions.
Any questions about data privacy?
Is it hackable? Like, if somebody hacked it, and are we still responsible? Because I don't have so much knowledge about it. I don't know.
You're responsible for you know, whatever data you collect. Is a very good question. You're responsible for taking good care of it. So therefore, you have to have as little data as possible for a short period as possible, and, you know, user you know, secure it behind some sort of passwords or encryption or stuff like that, so that the data is not hackable. Of course, that's not true. So that it's difficult to hack. You have to do whatever you can to prevent it from happening. But, you know, people get hacked.
So it's gonna be expensive if I can't do it myself.
It's probably not going to be expensive, but it all depends. I mean, if we think about expensive, I think one of the recent fines issued in Norway, SATS, the training place, they got a 10 million NOK fine, which is a lot of money, at least for me, for you, most of you, I assume. But in total, I mean, it's, you know, they have turnover of 2.4 billion NOK each year, so it's a very little fraction of what they make. And you know, small companies or you know, one-man band and small organizations, it's not huge fines. But you know, the whole principle here is trying to take proper care of it. And as my first slide said, you know, make sure that you know what data you're trying to collect, and you know, treat it fair and try not to share it with you know, unauthorized parties. And you know, if you want people to put in their names or contact details and stuff like that, make sure that it's something that is on the hidden side of it. And I'm sure Tobias will be able to show how to do that, so it's behind passwords or encrypted or hidden. Because you don't want everyone to come on your page and be able to read all your registers and all your customer files and all your member files. That would not be good from GDPR.
So, like for us, like I'm amateur on this. I have only had one Python course for scientific programming. So is it like I just follow a schedule that is easy to understand, and it will be fine?
Common sense, I think, yes. It'd be easy to understand.
Use common sense, try your best, and in the end, it's a question about minimizing risk, because in any business you can't be 110% compliant in every single way. Yeah.
Because I've heard like if you have a Hotmail address, then you can find out a lot. Like,
Yeah, you're pretty searchable online.
Yeah.
So a thing that we can get into is, say, when you embed Facebook and YouTube and stuff, you might see that when you don't accept cookies, it stops working on your website that you visit. And that's someone that has done it in a good way, because YouTube, when it's embedded, it collects more information about you than is strictly necessary. So you need to accept that as a user. Let's say you're embedding YouTube and not using a cookie bot, then you're taking a risk, So just know when, use common sense. Yeah.
So the decision on whether having cookies or not is up to us.
Yeah, actually, cookies specifically, it's up to the user. If you want to have third-party cookies, which are cookies from Google, for example. If you want to go to the next slide where you show those lines, Eric, you can see stuff here goes to Google, and that's probably through like a cookie by Google, because VG probably has Google Ads. And to have a cookie from Google on VG, you as a user need to accept that you want that cookie. But VG can still have their own cookies. Cookies are just like collecting the information about you. So your website you visit can use its own first-party cookie to be like, are you logged in or not? But third-party cookies, it's like a specific rule. You need to consent for those. And then, right? Probably. And then on first-party cookies, like the general rules apply. But like specifically for third-party cookies, it's like just a cut and dry rule that you need to accept if the place you're visiting is going to use them. Right?
But it boils down to this. So if you have a very simple web page that can do limited stuff, chances are you don't have a lot of data you share with others. But the more you add on and plugins, functionality, embed YouTube's, link up with Facebook, you go on and on and on, then the chances of this problem increases, and then you can limit that partially or more with the use of the cookie consent by saying that my users turn off or choose not to consent to stuff. But then sometimes, some of that functionality will not work, because without the cookie they won't give it to you, because you sort of pay them for the use. It's free. You pay by your customers' privacy data. So, but I guess that most of you are on Facebook. So therefore, when you make this thing here, think about it. How much you take care of protecting your own name and contact details in day-to-day business. Because most of us, when we go to Facebook, don't pay a lot of attention. We just accept it. Accept the terms and conditions. Sure. Have you read it? Hands up. Facebook. Terms and conditions. Good.
There is a I don't remember the name, but there's a good website for checking all of the terms and conditions that like summarizes them, and then they will tell you how much of your data how much of your rights that they can take, and how much of your data, and how they are allowed to share it. So some websites are really bad at it and can sell some really sensitive data. And there are, I can find it while we have a break. And then
Perfect, and then you can add it to this presentation for next time.
Yeah.
Or put it on the Facebook page.
Because nobody wants to read and also this is another use for ChatGPT. I don't want to read 5 pages of terms and conditions. You can ask ChatGPT who gets access to my data and what data do they have access to, and then paste in the text that you want the GPT to read, and they will give you an answer. Because most people use ChatGPT like a search engine. It's very bad for search engine stuff because we already have Google for that. But ChatGPT is a great language, intelligent language model. So it understands writing very well. So if you can have it read a text, it will understand it for you and read it in like this.
Okay, so you paste in the text and ask it to analyze it. You don't ask, what does Facebook take my data? You give it the terms and conditions and ask it to boil it down to 5 sentences.
And the way Google and Facebook are playing this out is that they're gambling that they're going to make more money by invading your privacy than they're going to get fined by stepping over the line, because who knows where that line is. So this is a whole big topic. Yeah.
They get fined all the time.
Yes, they do.
Thank you, and now it's back to you.
Thank you. So you're probably starving, but I just wanted to say that on our study platform, you can become an editor or contributor, where as an editor, you'll be able to edit this part of our subject pages, just the way you're about to make your own website. And as a contributor, your files will be put into the filed area under the subject that you have contributed your files to. And if you stay in touch with us, maybe we can have you make some websites for paid members, or have you join us in our further entrepreneurship. And if you would like to use your skills from today, you can help improve our study platform, improve these courses, join social events, or just improve our association as a whole. And our community is open, and volunteer membership is free. And if you today realize that you don't want to spend your time making your own website, we do have a paid membership where we make your first draft. And we do get the network from these courses of people that you can pay to help you out with your website. If this becomes a business and you see that you don't have time to make your website, but after today and after getting your own test site today, you probably also know better what you need help with. And with that, questions? Pizza. It's a volunteer membership is free, and we'll pay for one domain for you.